Our 35th president, John F. Kennedy, was undoubtedly known for his fondness, vibrance, and youthful vigor. These characteristics were what was most missed about him by those who knew him personally and even those who didn't. Not only did he have a grade A personality, but he successfully led the country through the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962, as well as creating the Peace Corps. These events, of course, are just highlights of the influential life of JFK. On November 22, 1963, Kennedy traveled to Dallas, Texas with his wife Jacqueline. The purpose was to gain popularity in these areas in preparation for the 1964 presidential election. Around noon on that day, Kennedy and his wife hopped in a limousine and took part in a motorcade. A half hour later, Kennedy was assassinated after suffering 3 shots of a sniper in his upper body. After a 10-month investigation, the assassin was found to be Lee Harvey Oswald, a former American Marine. Kennedy then slumped over on the shoulder of his shocked and devastated wife. He was pronounced dead at Parkland Memorial Hospital at 1 p.m. that day. It was not known immediately who had committed the crime. Oswald was arrested at the scene and brought in for police questioning for approximately 12 hours. During this time, Oswald denied any involvement with the assassination of Kennedy, as well as that of J.D. Tippit, a patrolman in the plaza in which the conflict occurred. He was later charged with the assassination of the president. 2 days later, while police were transferring him from headquarters to the county jail, he was shot and killed by a nightclub owner, Jack Ruby. To this day, it cannot be said that Oswald was the true assassin of John F. Kennedy. In fact, some believe not enough evidence was compiled and the killer is still unknown. Once Kennedy was declared dead, his body was flown from Dallas back to Washington, D.C. Representatives from over 90 different countries attended the funeral held on November 25th. He was later buried in Arlington National Cemetery. Jawaharlal Nehru, the Prime Minister of India at the time, spoke on the matter. He called the news terrible, shocking, and stunning. He also said that this was the sudden end of a great career of a great man. He also added, it was not only painful personally, but a large consequence to international affairs. Nehru was not the only world power to express their sorrow about the recent occurrence. Leaders from China, Malaysia, Greece, Algeria, Ethiopia, Lebanon, and many others made public comments in regards to the assassination. Many expressed grief and sympathy, while some paid tribute to the vibrant leader Kennedy once was. Some musical artists even created songs in reaction to the event. Schools, offices, stores, and factories had been closed. Those that were open at the time had a minute of silence in honor. Others permitted employees time off to attend memorial services. In some cities across the country, police officers attached black bands to their badges. In many states, governors declared the day of national mourning as a legal holiday in their state, allowing banks to close. To mark the start of his funeral, there was a silence across the United States at 12 o'clock p.m. for 5 minutes. After all the mourning, the country had to get back on track. Kennedy's vice president, Lyndon B. Johnson, took the oath of office and was declared the 36th president of the United States. The same question is asked about 9/11 nowadays. Where were you when you heard about the Kennedy assassination? Not only did it influence the world of politics at the time, but it reshaped the country as a whole. Parents of young children who were not fully aware of what had happened were faced with telling them the reality of exactly what occurred. Not only did this allow each and every family in the United States to move on from this devastating tragedy, but it allowed the entire nation to come together and move on as one. In 1963, my grandmother Linda Fisher taught at an elementary school in Pensacola, Florida. She said, The day President John F. Kennedy was assassinated, you could hear the commotion in the school hallway as each classroom door was opened and the horrible news was shared. My grandmother also said, "Everybody roamed the hall shocked, not saying a word, and no conversations were needed as each of us knew that all our peers knew exactly what was going on." My grandmother was unfortunately in a tough situation at the time. As a 4th grade teacher, she was forced to be brave and explain to the young children exactly what had happened. I can only imagine the amount of kids who begged to go home, wanting to feel the comfort and security of being in the hands of their parents. Despite this state of grief that the entire United States was in when the news was released, many Americans in similar positions as my grandmother were forced to accept what had happened and move on. Something else that she had told me was, "The remainder of that day is all a blur. All were so shocked by the event." In addition to dealing with this devastated young children, she had to come to a realization herself as she tried to understand what this event meant to her and how it would impact her life going forward.